On today's show, the Cavs go up to Toronto, lose to the Raptors. Kenny Atkinson said they had no juice. I think that's fine, but there's one thing I don't think is okay coming out of this game on Monday night. I'll tell you what it is and why I think that on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everybody. My name is Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers over at my Substack, The Inside Shot. And you can find this show in any Locked On podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts. And thank you to those of you that make Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. It's because of people like you that the Locked On Podcast Network is now the #1 sports podcast network in America. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. While we are getting started here, if you could do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button on YouTube, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from us. That is the very best way to help grow this channel. The Cleveland Cavaliers were on the road for the second night of a back-to-back in Toronto. They fall to the Raptors 110-99 in a game that the Cavs had no juice. Like I thought watching this game, and if you're watching the video on YouTube right now, I think you can tell I am not in my normal podcast studio. I am in a hotel room on the outskirts of Toronto. I was at this game. I watched in person, was at all the stuff afterwards. And watching this game in person, and I'm not sure how it came through on TV, but watching in person, like it was evident to me that the regulars for the Cavs looked worn out. They looked like guys that had been through a lot of basketball in a short period of time. And Donovan Mitchell, who won Eastern Conference Player of the Week on Monday afternoon, didn't look like himself. I didn't think he had his normal burst. Thought the lift on his jumpers didn't necessarily look right. Like he hit a big three at the start of the game. He had a couple of threes in the fourth quarter to bring the Cavs to within 4 points. I think it was at 101-97. And the Cavs really couldn't get over that hump because they didn't have the requisite juice. And Kenny Atkinson mentioned that after the game. Like if you watch this game, I thought personally, this was a group that was out of energy. They looked like a group that was out of gas, that is begging to have some days off. And we'll talk about what that could mean coming up because the Cavs do have 3 days off this week. Like they don't play again until Friday. It's the first time this year they've had more than 2 days off in a row. And it's just the second time they've had more than 1 day off in a row. So this is a team that has played more games than any other team, or the most games, I guess would be a more accurate way to say it, because there are a couple of other teams that have played 19 games so far this season. Cavs have played the most games of anybody, which means they've also had the least amount of rest, right? Like those two things go hand in hand. And when you talk about, too, this game, like it is important to look at this game and say, okay, did the Cavs lose to the Raptors, or did the Cavs without a bunch of guys lose a basketball game? Because the Cavs were down 7 rotation players in this game. DeAndre Hunter sat for rest purposes. Darius Garland is not playing both sides of a back-to-back right now. He played on Sunday night against the Clippers. Donovan Mitchell played. Evan Mobley played. Sam Merrill didn't play. Jalen Tyson played, but Dean Wade didn't play, right? Like you can go on and on and on down the list. Jared Allen did not play. Max Strus still has not played this year. Craig Porter Jr. was unavailable for this game. Like the Cavs were without so many guys that it's hard for me to look at this and say, man, that's a bad loss. Like, no, this was a really, really shorthanded team. And I think that if you want to, because I think we are at a point, and I'll talk about this later in the show, and I will certainly talk about this throughout the rest of the week. We are at a point now where it is fair, I think, to evaluate some things. Like you can't make a complete judgment on the Cavs through their first quarter of the season, because when the buzzer sounds on Friday after the first half, we will officially be 25% of the way through the regular season for the Cavs. So it is fair to start looking at, okay, what's going well, what's not going well, but everything does have to be taken with a grain of salt because the Cavs have not had a single game this year, even taking into account Max Strus not available, not going to be available for the foreseeable future. Even taking that into account, the Cavs have not had a game this year where everybody aside Max Strus has been available. Like they have been beat up the entire time. It is an unfortunate reality. You still have to find ways to win games, and no one's going to feel sorry for you. Trust me, the Toronto Raptors didn't feel sorry for the Cavs on Monday night. But I look at this and say, this is, of the losses the Cavs have had this year, the 7 losses now they've had, this might be the most excusable one. Like this might be the one where I'm just willing to look and say, you know what? Don't even worry about that one. That there's not much to take away from why the Cavs lost this game. But there's one thing that I look at and say that needed to be different. And I know I just talked about the juice, and I didn't think Donovan had the juice. I didn't think Evan had the juice. I thought Jalen Tyson really tried to manufacture it, and maybe he has a little bit fresher legs right now because he did miss 5 games because of a concussion. He played both ends of this back-to-back. But when you scroll through the box score, there is one thing that stands out, and nobody of the regulars for the Cavs I thought was particularly good in this game. Like maybe you want to say Jalen Tyson was, that's fine. We didn't get a good Donovan Mitchell game. I think he has more than earned the right to have an off game. Like he has been playing, I think, the best basketball of his career. But I look at this and, okay, Evan Mobley, 14 points. Okay, whatever. 5 of 7 from the floor. Evan, it is, to me, the thing that is inexcusable is that Evan Mobley only attempted 7 field goal attempts in a game that the Cavs did not have Darius Garland, in a game that the Cavs did not have DeAndre Hunter, in a game that the Cavs did not have Jarrett Allen. Like if all those guys are there, I think that is still too few shot attempts for Evan Mobley. I think that he needs to be somebody that needs to be second or third at the worst in field goal attempts in a game. Here are the guys in this game that took more field goal attempts than Evan Mobley. Donovan Mitchell, he was 6 of 20 again. Not a great game from Donovan. I think he has, again, more than earned the right to have not a great game because of how good he has been lately. So he took 20 shots. Lonzo Ball, who made a couple of threes early and then missed his, I think he started 2 or 3 and then missed his final 9 threes to finish 2 of 12 from deep. But he was 3 of 15 from the floor. So he took 15 shots. Jalen Tyson, he had a solid game. He was 6 of 9. He took 9 shots. Tyrese Proctor, not the best game from him. I thought he made some nice plays, but overall not a great game from him. He was 2 of 9. He took 9 attempts. Nae'Qwan Tomlin, he had a good game. We are going to talk about Naquan Tomlin coming up. 6 of 8 from the floor. He took 8 field goal attempts. So I have gone and I've named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. And again, Donovan Mitchell should be taking more shots than Evan Mobley. Zero issue with that. But the other 4 guys, those guys should not be getting more shot attempts than Evan Mobley. And I think this is not on just Evan. It's not just on the coach's staff. It's not just on the other players. But overall, this is a thing that, yes, did Evan have the energy he needed to have tonight? No, probably not. But that doesn't, to me, make up for him only having 7 shots. And yes, the way the Raptors defended him, they were trying to force the Cavs to make shots from the outside. And the Cavs shot 48 threes in this game. They were 14 of 48. And part of the reason why the Raptors have that strategy is because look at the supporting cast. Like if Sam Merrill is available, if Darius Garland is available, if DeAndre Hunter is available, like if the Cavs regulars are available, I don't think that opposing teams can play this sort of strategy against Evan Mobley specifically, but I still think there needs to be a way for him to find more than 7 shots. And I will say, of the 7 attempts that he took, I thought it was good where he was getting those shots from, right? Like they were around the rim. He did make 2 out of 3 threes. He did make both his free throws. Like I liked the things that Evan actually did in this game. That to me is kind of what I'm wrestling with. Like when he did go to the basket, when he did get the ball up, he did do good things, right? Like I thought he made the right plays, and that certainly matters in this conversation. But the more I look at this, on a night where the Cavs are shorthanded, and I don't think that there's a ton to really be concerned about from this game. I really don't. But the more I look at this, I say, you know what, Evan I need a little bit more from him, even on a night that he doesn't have juice. Like Donovan, again, didn't have it tonight. Like I've said 3 times, that's fine. But he still took 20 shots. And yes, I understand it is so much easier with where Donovan is at in his career and where he is as a basketball player. And 2, the style of basketball player he is. Like I completely 1000% understand it is so much easier for Donovan Mitchell to get shots than it is Evan Mobley. Because I also look at this and say, well, if Evan's going to take 12 threes in a game to get to 15 shots, I don't know that that's necessarily what the Cavs want either. So there does have to be that balance there. But that's the one thing I look at and say, you know what, if this were, I think, a one-off with Evan, like if it was just, you know what, he didn't have the juice, which again, fine, but he only took 7 shots in part because of that, I think I'd be okay with it. But it's not that. Like I do think that his offensive numbers should be better. He took 12 field goal attempts against the Clippers. That's on the low end for me. He took 13 field goal attempts against the Pacers on Friday. Again, that's on the low end for me. He did only take 13 against the Rockets. Like, I would like to see more out of Evan Mobley. And it's not just a Monday night against Toronto thing. I think this is a trend that needs to be corrected. Like, to me, he looks like somebody right now that isn't playing with the same confidence we saw him play with last year. I will say, I think it's a good sign that he hit a couple of free throws. I think it's a good sign that he hit a couple of threes. Like, I do think that his jumper looked a little bit better on Monday, and maybe that is the important thing to take away as far as Evan goes. Like, am I willing to give him a pass for not having the juice? Yeah, I am. Because what the Cavs have gone through, this was their 19th game, as I mentioned, the most games of anybody in basketball right now. And I understand that the travel's been rough. They've played a lot of teams that play fast-paced. They've played a lot of good teams too. Like, they don't have a ton of games that they've played so far against teams that are below 500. So I look at that and say, I get all of it. I do. And I think that I have talked about that maybe even a little bit too much and given them too much of a benefit of the doubt. I don't think so, but I can understand if you do think that. But I look at this from Evan's perspective and say, this year was supposed to provide more from Evan Mobley. And Monday night's game is an example of Evan not necessarily moving in the right direction. I do think that had the Cavs lost this game, and let's just say Evan would have gone 5 of 15 from the floor. Let's say he would have struggled, not been efficient, but the aggressiveness was there. And it was just a night he didn't have it. I almost think that would have been something that would have been a little bit more palatable than him only getting 7 shots. But I do have to say, too, one of the things that Donovan Mitchell said in the locker room afterwards that stuck out to me is like, Evan's making the right play. And that does have to matter too, to some extent. And maybe I should have mentioned this earlier in this monologue about Evan Mobley's aggressiveness. Like, he is making the right play. He had 4 assists. He did have 4 turnovers, which not necessarily what you want to see either. But I do think right now we are learning, or we are watching Evan try and learn how to navigate a different way that he's being defended. And in the long run, I think it will be a good thing for Evan Mobley. But when you look at nights like Monday in Toronto, which again, I think this loss is completely excusable. I do. And I know that not everybody wants to hear that. And maybe it shouldn't be. But I think considering where they're at in the schedule, this is a very tired team with an excusable loss, considering they had 7 rotation players missing. So I look at it and just say, the one thing that I look at that I think should have been different from this game, they should have found some way to get Evan Mobley more involved offensively than he was. Maybe it would not have made a difference. Maybe he wouldn't have been as good if he had a heavier load on offense on Monday night. We'll never know that difference, but I do know that on a night where the Cavs didn't have the juice, Evan Mobley wasn't there to try and help bring them up a little bit. And that, to me, is something that needs to get better. It's not it's not the be-all, end-all, right? Like, ultimately, this is a Monday night game before Thanksgiving even arrives. We have a long way to go with Evan. We have a long way to go with this team. So I think those things are worth noting. But I look at this and just say, I expected a little bit better from Evan Mobley so far this year. And on a night where the Cavs were as shorthanded as they were, 7 field goal attempts is not an acceptable number for Evan Mobley. Now, I do want to talk about some of the other guys that I thought did look good. Naquan Tomlin, we keep talking about him on the show. Didn't have that on my Locked On Cavs bingo card before the season, but we're going to talk about him again because he was pretty good in this game for the Cavs. So we'll do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that is Robinhood, ROBINHOOD.com/your YOUR money. Your money, your move. Today's show is also brought to you by DripDrop. When I'm hydrated, everything works better, right? Like, you feel better, you feel healthier, you've got better focus, energy, mood, your skin get better, right? DripDrop is going to help you achieve that. So I, over the weekend, got a package of DripDrop in the mail, and I had not tried it before, but I Opened up my first one. It was a great flavor. I took it prior to the Cavs game on Sunday against the Clippers. First time trying it, right? Didn't know what to necessarily expect. I had heard good things, but you kind of never know until you try it for yourself, right? So I tried it, and I have to say, it is 12:16 in the morning, Tuesday morning. Second night of a back-to-back. Obviously, I was at Cavs Clippers on Sunday. I drove to Toronto Monday morning. I am sitting in a hotel outside of Toronto. I had DripDrop yesterday, had DripDrop today, and like I feel better. Normally when I'm at this part, like I personally am exhausted. If I don't have coffee, I'm like, how am I going to get through a podcast? Like it's just brutal. Like I am trying to keep myself awake. But because of DripDrop, like I just feel like I am recharged in a way that I shouldn't have been, right? Like I feel healthier because I'm hydrated. And that is one of the most underrated things. And DripDrop's not your average sports drink. Delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. It's made a difference for me already. It can make a difference for you. And right now, DripDrop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to DripDrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That is DripDrop.com, DRIPDROP.com. Promo code Locked On NBA for 20% off. Stock up right now because you're going to need it. Holiday season is arriving. You're going to be tired. Keeping yourself hydrating is something that is very important. So check out DripDrop at DripDrop.com today. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen. And thank you to those of you that make Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts. It's Apple, at Spotify, that is anywhere else. We've been talking more about Naquan Tomlin than I thought we would be talking about Naquan Tomlin. But I thought in this game, he was really good again. And what I think is really important about this too, from a Naquan Tomlin perspective, is the fact that he played almost 32 minutes in this game. Because what we have seen from Naquan has been like, 10 minutes of energy here, or maybe 12 minutes of energy, and just like kind of making a difference, doing the little things. But Naquan played a lot of minutes. Like I didn't go back and look, and I would guess this is not the most minutes he's played in a game. I would think that the final game of the regular season last year between the Cavs and Pacers, where nobody played of the regulars, I would think he eclipsed this mark in that game. But I thought he was really good. And he made a couple of threes tonight, which he made his first 3 of the season on Sunday against the Clippers, made 2 more against Toronto on Monday night. He finished with 14 points on 6 of 8 shooting, had 4 rebounds, did foul 4 times. But like overall, I just think that he can really develop into a high-level role player. And I know I've said this a few times, and I started saying it in the summer, really coming out of Summer League. But if 1 year from now, Naquan Tomlin was in the rotation for the Cavs, I would not be surprised in the slightest. Like he, to me, while he's still raw, he's still learning. Like I think at times he's still out of position defensively. I think he's still learning where to be. He's certainly still learning how to play with guys in terms of his teammates and like where to be, where they want him to be, stuff like that. And that is a process, and it's not one that's going to get figured out overnight by any stretch of the imagination. But I look at this and just say, he's got raw talent. It's not super formed yet, and he's not. Everyone knows his story, right? Like if you're just tuning into this podcast today, finding out about Naquan Tomlin. So essentially, he didn't play competitive basketball, like organized basketball, until he got to college. So for him to be in the NBA is really an incredible underdog story, and the fact that he looks like he can play legitimate minutes for one of the favorites to win the NBA championship is really, really impressive too. So I'm not going to sit here and say, yes, when the Cavs get back to being fully healthy, he should be in the rotation, because I don't know that that's true right now. But if you look at the future of the Cavs, I do think there's a place for him. Now, he needs to shoot the ball a little bit better than he has been, and making 2 threes in this game is a step in the right direction. And it's kind of like the whole, Rome wasn't built in a day type thing. But I do think that there's a future for Naquan in the NBA. There's a future for Naquan with the Cavs. Organizationally, I think they really like him. They like his toughness. They certainly like his motor. They like the energy that he brings. And I really think that he's got a very high ceiling. I'm not going to sit here and say like, yes, Naquan Tomlin is going to be a star player in the NBA, because the likelihood of that happening is very, very low. But I do think that, can he be a high-level role player? I think he can. And I will be very curious because the Cavs have talked about him, and Kenny Atkinson in particular has said a couple of times, like in big moments, and to me, big moments for this team, things that happen in April, May, and June, like playoff moments are big moments. I don't know that there is a quote unquote big moment or a must win thing in the regular season for this team. Maybe there will be when it comes to seeding in the second half of the year, but we have to get to that point before we know it. But I look at this and they have said, we need to be able to count on him in big moments. Like, can he come in a playoff game and play 3 minutes and look the part? Well, for that to happen, he needs to be on a real contract, because right now Naquan Tomlin is on a 2-way contract, which part of what makes this game to me a loss that like I just can't take issue with. So Naquan Tomlin played 32 minutes in this game, right? Which is the most he has played this year. Chris Livingston, who had never played for the Cavs before. He's an Akron native. He's on a 2-way contract. He was originally drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks. He was waived by the Bucks at the conclusion of training camp. I believe it was this year. So he made his Cavs debut. I thought he did good things too. Like, I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about Chris Livingston, but I thought he did good things. So he played 14 minutes. Luke Travers, he played 11 minutes. So the Cavs' 3 2-way guys played a total of 57 minutes and some change in this game. Like, when that happens in the NBA against a good team, like, I don't think the Toronto Raptors are great. I don't view them as contenders. I think they'll be a playoff team that will probably lose in the first or second round, depending on who they get matched up with. And that will be a good season for them and a step in the right direction for them. But when your 2-way guys are playing that much, like, it's just not a loss that I think you can really be mad about. So I look at this and say, well, they are still valuable minutes. It's still valuable for a guy like Naquan Tomlin to go out there and play 32 minutes in an NBA competitive environment where he had a positive impact on the game. I know he was a -5 in the 32 minutes that he played, but it felt like he was doing more good things than bad. And there was a stretch when the Cavs had a lineup out there of Lonzo Ball, Tyrese Proctor, Larry Nance Jr., Naquan Tomlin, and Chris Livingston. Or it may have been Luke Travers and Chris Livingston. But essentially in this game, they had 2 guys on a 2-way, a second-round draft pick, a guy who has played 70 games prior to this season in 4 years in Lonzo Ball, which there is an interesting note on Lonzo Ball share in a second, and a guy on a minimum contract in Larry Nance Jr. So I will say, maybe the most positive thing, other than like really good experience for some young guys, I will say, I think one of the more positive things about this game, I thought the Cavs played very hard. Like, for a team that didn't have the juice, it wasn't like they just went out there and were going through the motions. I thought they didn't have the juice in terms of they weren't able to get to the rim. They didn't look as explosive as we're used to seeing them. They could not hit shots. They shot 29% on 48 threes, which that to me says, okay, your legs are a little heavy. You're not getting the lift on your jumper that you're used to getting, and that's why you're missing. And especially a lot of those missed jumpers were short. So that tells me, okay, this is probably a team that needs some time off. But the fact that they competed as hard as they did, considering who was out there, I think that there are positives to take away from this game without question. Now, I also look at it and say there's a positive that this game is over. I'll tell you what that is and why I think it's a very, very important thing for the Cavs next, right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Basketball season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for the early season matchups. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a complete and total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, prices that jump right before checkout. It can be easy to get frustrated when all you want to do, cheer on your favorite team. I did see some fans inside Scotiabank Arena wearing Cavs stuff on Monday. I am willing to bet that some of them use Game Time to get in the arena, and Game Time is going to do the thing that you want it to do. It's going to take the headache out of buying tickets. It is the app that gives fans the advantage, your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and most importantly, stress-free. With Game Time, what you see is what you pay. There's no hidden fees at checkout. Plus, you can see exactly what your view is going to look like before you buy the tickets with the in-app seat view feature that I personally think is a total game changer. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Game Time. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first watch on YouTube. If you are watching right now, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And this was an important game for the Cavs in the sense that it's now over. And why do I say that? I say that because for me to talk about the Cavs having the lack of juice that they have had in this game, and I think it's been evident at times, like there have been teams that have just had more energy than the Cavs have. And I think a lot of that has to do with the schedule. Now, so far this season, the Cavs have played 19 games, which no team in the NBA has played more than that. They're tied for the most as play wraps up on Monday night. And that is something that matters because since the season started, they have had one instance of back-to-back days off. And that was prior to the game against Philadelphia, which, if you remember, that was Darius Garland's return to the floor after missing the first, whatever it was, 7 games of the season. Since then, they have played at least every other day, if not back-to-back, which they did in this instance. They've had a stretch of 5 games in 7 nights. They have had, I believe, 7 instances where it's been their 3rd game in 4 nights, which Monday night was. So I say all of that to say this is a team that does look tired. This is a team that looks like it really does need a break. And they'll get a mini one here where they've got Tuesday off. So that's today for those of you listening at home. They've got tomorrow off and they've got Thursday off for Thanksgiving. They're back in action on Friday against the Atlanta Hawks. And I think that this is a good stretch for the Cavs to sort of figure some things out. Now, like this is not going to be a stretch where there is ample practice time. Certainly, I would imagine they'll have practice at some point this week. They're not going to practice on Tuesday after having a back-to-back. They will be off. They will probably not practice on Thursday with it being Thanksgiving. So maybe they practice on Wednesday, or maybe it's just hey, let's rest and recharge and do all that. But what I look at is this next stretch of games. So they play Friday against Atlanta in Atlanta. They play home against Boston on Sunday. Next Monday is the second night of a back-to-back again, 3rd game in 4 nights again in Indianapolis against the Indiana Pacers. Then they come home for 3 games against Portland and then a back-to-back against San Antonio and Golden State next, not this upcoming weekend, but the weekend following. And then after that, if you pull up their schedule, there's a big old gap in that schedule. And that gap is from December 6th against Golden State to December 17th in Chicago against the Bulls. That's the NBA Cup break. Now, they will play a couple of games in there, or they could still qualify for the quarterfinals of the NBA Cup, depending on what happens on Friday, not only with their game against Atlanta, but in other games across the NBA. So one of the things that I think is important, last year, maybe it wasn't necessarily around this time, but the Cavs went through a little bit of a lull. And yes, they got off to a much, much, much better start than what they've gotten off to this year. So maybe it's not apples to apples, right? But they didn't qualify to get out of the NBA Cup. They lost back-to-back games, if you think, to the Atlanta Hawks. Like they went through a stretch where they lost 3 out of 5. After they started 15-0, they lost 3 out of 5. They lost to Boston. They lost 2 games to Atlanta. And then they picked it up a little bit. They had 4 more wins against Boston, which was a nice win. Washington stunk. Denver was a nice win. Charlotte stunk. So they had 2 good wins. They beat 2 bad teams, which is something too. The Cavs have had a couple of games, like they played Washington once. They played Brooklyn once. They've not necessarily had a lot of bad teams on the schedule too, which I do think is something that is just worth bringing up. And then they had the break, right? They had that NBA Cup break. And even then too, last year after Thanksgiving, they lost. Well, they didn't have the same Thanksgiving break too, which is worth noting last year. But they lost the game after Thanksgiving. And then they went on a run where they won after the start of December. So December 1st, they won 4 straight, lost 1, and then won their next 12. And I'm not going to sit here and say, yes, the Cavs have a double-digit win streak on the way. But I do think with a little bit of rest, a little bit of practice time, we're going to see the Cavs start to look like the team that we expect them to be. I wouldn't panic because they haven't looked great so far this season. I think there's been a lot that's gone into it. Number 1, they need to get healthier. Number 2, there are some things that do need to be cleaned up. And I will talk about that this week. Like the Cavs are at basically the quarter mark of the season. Like I said earlier, I think I did, when the halftime buzzer sounds on Friday in Atlanta, that will be 25% of the season will be over and done with for them. So there are things to look into. But overall, this is a group that needs a little bit of rest. They need to get healthy. And I think those 2 things are going to start to happen. And because of that, we will see a much better version of the Cleveland Cavaliers very, very soon. I really do believe that. But that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked on Cavs. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast. And thank you for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify. We are everywhere you get your podcast. We're on YouTube as well. So if you're watching right now, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button as we get out of here. Click subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will be back tomorrow talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.